This is Here in My Time, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between generations. I'm your host, Lauren Hunt, a personal journalist, a photographer, documentarian, and a lover of stories, located here in Wabash, Indiana. I can't help it. I love stories. I'm either listening to one or reading about one. And if I'm not doing either of those, I'm probably telling one. My parents say I have a big mouth, and I can't help it. I do love to talk. So I'm so excited that you've tuned in today to this first little soft launch episode of Here in My Time before the official season premiering January 5th, 2026. This first season is jam-packed with amazing interviews of local community members. These are people who I have loved for a very long time, people that I have met and listened to their stories or have acquired about their stories, and luckily for me and for you, they said yes. I cannot wait to be holding this space for them to share their dash of life with you. Not only do I have amazing interviews and stories, I have some great creative inspiration. Because I should add, I'm a huge creative junkie. I kind of have like a hobby ADHD. I jump to all different hobbies. I put my hand to a lot, from building to writing, and I can't help it. It's just who I am. Today's episode is all about diving deep into the heart behind this podcast. I thought it was a perfect opportunity for us to kind of get to know each other before that premiere season. So today I thought I would just kind of start off by telling a little bit about who I am. I'm 25 years old, and like I said, I'm a personal journalist, but I haven't always been that. I guess in a way I have, but not officially like I am now. When I was little, I grew up in a huge storytelling family. My grandpa was an amazing storyteller, just like every grandpa. They loved to kid you, they loved to scare you, and they were great at it. The problem with me, though, is I believed every story, which also created a lot of ornery moments, let me just say there. My grandpa loved to scare me with rawhide bloody bones and no-see-ums, and we would sit out on the porch and he would tell these, and he'd get really low in his voice and he'd scare me like rawhide bloody bones, and then he'd almost lean me off the side of the porch and I'd squeal. It was the best thing. And one day when it gets close to Halloween, I'll tell that story just in memory of him. I grew up beyond the storytelling around the table and on the porch. I grew up going to garage sales and antique stores. And I don't know about you, but I love to spend money at garage sales and antique stores. I can't help it. I love old things. All my friends call me old soul, and at least a old soul, but my two closest friends who are in their 70s and 80s that you will meet next season call me old soul as a nickname. And so I answer to that. And of course, I will always be that way. But at these particular Saturdays when we would go antiquing and or garage sailing, we'd get up really, really early. Mom would pack snacks and, of course, have a jug of sweet tea, and we would all pile into the truck. And we would grab the newspaper and cross and circle the different ones that we wanted to hit that day. It was an early morning, and most of the time, I was probably taking a nap to the first stop. I kind of already still do that if I'm going with my family, of course. But I think for me personally, when I would go there, I would always find something special. Something that probably didn't mean too much to anybody else that would come. But I found a lot of different things that meant something to that seller. And a lot of times, because I was young and I loved that sort of thing, and I would check out, they would, with the garage seller especially, they would always end up telling me stories about these items that I would pick up. Whether it was a book or one time I've got all kinds of stuff at garage sales. I couldn't even keep track, but it could be anything from a book to a coffee mug. I don't know. It just depends on the mood that I am in or what I'm looking for that day. But it was stories. It was constantly stories. And what's special to me is I can remember In downtown Wabash, there was an antique store called the Crow's Nest, I believe it was called. For some reason, all I'm thinking about is coffee because of the new coffee shop. But anyway, that was a special place because we would go there a lot. And I would go to each booth and I would look for different things. I loved Western things. I loved pioneer things. So it was super easy for me to find at least something. And it was special because we would get something. And one time I remember going in there and there was a shoebox. And in that shoebox was a whole bunch of old photographs. And for me, those photographs had a story to them that there wasn't an answer to. There was no writing on the back. If there was, it was very minimal, maybe not even their name, but maybe a date. Sometimes I could tell kind of what era it was in, but it was something for me to try to create in my mind these stories that belong to each person. And for me personally, I love their eyes, and their eyes always told a story. And I could just dive into that photograph. And I've always been that way. I've always been the kind of person that had a high imagination. And so I can easily get sucked into a story, and then I can easily be scared by a story. Even to this day, I admit it, I put my hands up. But that's kind of what's fun about all the stories, right? Is to be able to believe them. Anyway, I remember thinking, gosh, I wonder who these people were. Most of the time, I would never get an answer, of course, but I started collecting different photographs and even letters. I loved letters, and I just loved the fact that it was somebody I've never met before, but somehow I knew them, and I don't know why I knew them or how I knew them. I just felt like I knew who they were. It was just something special to me, and that just kind of always has been who I am. And I've always navigated to older generations who, it just came naturally to me to just kind of buddy up with them. They're my best friends. Like most of them are in their 70s and 80s, but they were able to give that kind of feeling to me, the kind of familiar feeling of I know you and I've been where you've been, and it's like a wisdom thing, I guess, for me, and it's amazing to have friends like that and to buddy up and appreciate their stories. And so throughout my entire life, I've always had friends, of course, that are older than me. And it's one of those things that I've tracked looking back now to where I am today, back then to here. It's been kind of a crazy ride for me to think about here starting a podcast. Because 7 years ago, I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to be starting something along that lines. But I think Maya Angelou put it best. Words are a thing. And she believed that they would get into your upholstery, into the walls, and into your fabric of your clothing. Sooner or later, it would seep into who you are. And I really took that to heart because words should have weight. What I say should have weight. And I don't think I lived enough, even though I heard a lot of stories. I don't think I knew where I was heading. And now I feel like I kind of know where I'm heading on this part of this little journey of life. And the whole personal journalist and coming into this podcast started when I started to pick up the camera again and capture some people in a photograph. And I will do an episode in the season 1 about photography because there's a lot of local photographers and I just love creating a community of creativity. So I can't wait for that, but I won't jump fully into that. But one day I picked up my camera and I had a time with it because I would go to downtown Wabash and just walk around and just take photographs. And one day I realized I really loved to photograph people, and I really wanted to get candid photographs and special portrait photographs when I look back in history books, because I am a huge history nerd, I love to look at the photographs. Of course, that takes me back to that little girl in the antique store with the shoebox, right? But I discovered a few photographers that I really, really loved, and Dorothea Lange was one of them. She was a documentary photographer. See, my brain just went kaput. That's just what that's one thing you should know about me. Is sometimes my brain just goes kaput. So, but she documented a lot of the migration, and back in during the Depression and all that stuff. And I have one of her books, and I thought I would love to start documenting things around me and the people around me. And one day I was out and I decided to take my first street portrait, and I was very nervous, and I walked up to this older lady standing on the corner by Modocs, and you can go on my blog right now and you can read that story. And I finally asked her, and I did, and she started telling me stories about her life, which I've learned is something that just naturally starts to happen. You ask questions, you kind of get to know them, you're trying to make them feel comfortable in front of the lens. And that was kind of my introductory to this thought of becoming a personal journalist, because I would just start writing stories of things that I've seen. And of course, I have been always writing, but it was a direction that I really loved, and it seemed to come so naturally. And one day I decided I was going to go down to First Friday and take my film camera that I had gotten at an antique store for a whole $35. And I was very, very happy to learn that it ended up working. By the way, everything works amazing. And I will post a picture of my camera with this episode post on social media. But it's a 35 millimeter, and I had a 50 millimeter lens. And I decided to go walking on 4th of July, First Friday. And of course, during this time, there's a lot of people at First Fridays. If you've never been to First Fridays in downtown Wabash, you're missing out, because you will definitely love them. And it's so much fun to go to the shops and see everything and all the people around. When I picked up my camera to go, I decided I would load up black and white film, because I love black and white film photography. So I put 400, and I'm so excited that I did, because the light was perfect for this. So I ended up walking around town, and across the street from Modocs, there was not too long ago a little Italian restaurant. And outside the restaurant door was a table that was draped with a picnic-style tablecloth. And on each side sat a gentleman. One was a veteran, and one was just a gentleman at first that I thought was just a family member, but ended up not being. And I was leaving First Friday, and I had taken a lot of photographs. I talked to people and all the things, and you just know it when you see it. And I saw it with this veteran. So I walked up to him, and I said, "Can I take your photograph?" I thought the man that was sitting across the table from him was maybe his son or family. And they were like, "Sure, go ahead." So I squared up and I took a photograph, and they started kind of talking, and the man left. And the veteran was just sitting there by himself. And I said, "Do you mind if I kind of just take more photographs of just you?" He said he didn't mind, and he turned his head and he looked towards the street. And I snapped a shot. He turned to me and he started telling me stories about his time in the Marines, and how the waves were so huge and bumping the ship and making things fall off the bunks, and the laughter that people would have within the ship of playing jokes on each other and different things like that. And I asked him, I said, "Can I take one more shot? I won't keep you long, but continue on with your story." And he turned again, and he turned his head straight ahead, and I snapped a shot. He had his hands folded on the table, and that was the shot that I was waiting for the whole time down at First Friday. He turned to me after I took that shot, and he said, "Are you a personal journalist?" And I thought it kind of caught me off guard, and I said, no, I just have been learning photography. I got this film camera. I've been wanting to use it to see if it worked. You're like my first portrait. I hope you don't mind. He goes, oh my gosh, no. And I said, well, like I said, I just love to hear people's stories. So continue on your story. And he paused and he looked at me and he goes, you might think about that. After we finished the conversation, I shook his hand and thanked him for his service, and I walked away. Months have passed by, and I have not forgot about what he said. It didn't necessarily click until later on, and I had the opportunity to write an article for a local newspaper, and that's when it clicked. I did it on a local musician, and it was really cool to see my work in print. And that's when it started to click for me. And so I started thinking about a way that I could continue on my stories and continue writing them and sharing them to a broader audience. So I decided to do this. And I turned on a website and I made my own little website called hereinmytime.com. And there's a little story section that is a blog. And it is a bi-weekly blog that just started this week. And I will be sharing all kinds of stories with you throughout these next several months until who knows where the future leads. But I thought it was the perfect place for me. But I really wanted to be able to document people's sounds and their behaviors, the way that they use their words, the way that they spoke. Some people can say fine and some people can say fine. There's something different within each person that I really wanted to capture. And so I decided I would finally do what I've always wanted to do, which was a podcast. And so here we are, a podcast. And I'm so excited that I'm actually doing this. I want this to be a place that is not super fast. This is a world full of social media. This is a world full of news, a world full of just fast-paced content. I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be something that is meat and not just, bones. So I really want it to be something that is going to say something. And when I think about all the people that I have met in my life, their stories and their behaviors, their laughters, the way that they hold their eyebrow when they say certain words has always been special to me. And so to have a place for me to share those stories and to learn about people I've never met before and people that are willing to talk about their stories or talk about an event that's coming on here in town or whatever it might be, I finally have a space to do that, and I'm so excited to be doing this. So, when I thought about my words having weight and words being a thing, like I mentioned earlier with Maya Angelou, I wanted my tagline to have something that encapsulated something that was very important to me, and I think I've done it. Bridging the gap between generations is not just a one-sided conversation. I believe that bridging the gap between generations takes it from both sides, understanding from both sides. It's not just the older generation coming to the younger generation. It's not just the younger generation coming to the older generation. And I think one way to do that is to bring variety of age on my podcast. And I can't wait because this is what's going to actually make us see life in so many different viewpoints. This is what's going to give us a bigger picture of this beautiful world that we live in and the life that we are able to have. So, with a little dash of life, and without further ado, for your book recommendation, as we end this first episode, I can't believe it, I wanted to give you a good book recommendation. And today I have one of my favorite books. because it makes you twist and turn in your morality, trying to understand what you think was right and what was wrong, and is it right, is it wrong? And then sooner or later you land on something, and I think everybody lands differently in trying to understand this book. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. Skloot is the author's last name. I always feel like I'm saying it wrong, so I figured I probably should spell it out for you. I'm going to read this little excerpt of it that is on the front of the book cover, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Doctors took her cells without asking. Those cells never died. They launched a medical revolution in a multi-million-dollar industry. More than 20 years later, her children found out. Their lives would never be the same. Doesn't that just sound like an amazing book? Well, it is, and I can't help it, and I have to agree with Entertainment Weekly that states I couldn't put this book down because that is the absolute truth. I have dog-eared and post-it note all over this book, and I love it to pieces. So I'm going to post a picture of it on my social media, both Facebook and Instagram, and I hope you pick it up. Now, I do have one last announcement before I go, and that is I am going to be releasing a small little Christmas episode because I can't wait a whole year to do that. So I'm going to do it, and I hope that you will tune into that. That is going to drop the 19th of this month. And make sure that you follow me on Facebook and Instagram. This is where you're going to be able to keep up to date on episodes and the photography that goes with each episode, as well as special writing prompts to help you document your life. Because guess what? Every dash of life is so important. Also, you can head over to hereinmytime.com because that, my friend, is where you can find all my bi-weekly writings that I have started and launched this week. This is the first week of it, so of course you need to catch up a little bit. I do have a little stories that I have added to my website when I first made it, so you should check those out as well while you're there. And also you should go over to my portfolio part and see all the fun little photos that I have taken. I hope you enjoy it and spend some time there. All right, y'all, this is Lauren Hunt signing off for the first time on this brand new episode and podcast. I hope you got a little dash of life. Y'all take care. And until next time, bye-bye.